All right, it's time for everybody. We're gonna get us started right now. Thanks everybody out there for visiting us today. We are here once again with our cápsulas or capsules in Spanish and in English. This is our second time we're getting together today. And yes, last time we got together to talk about ChatGPT and all things related to artificial intelligence. We had such a great time with our colleagues. We have also questions from people from the audience, and we actually invite people from the audience to go on the chat box somewhere on YouTube channel, and we will be able to respond some of your questions as well. So this is who we are. Like, we are scholars, academics, researchers. We're sort of constantly working towards producing, promoting, and sharing our work. And sometimes we find it difficult to cope. And then we found out the paramount need to connect as a collective, with others, establish relationships to support each other, help each other in times of despair and difficulty, or even for some piece of advice. And today's live stream episode is about sharing our experiences as a collective and how we went about creativity, collaboration, and how to navigate the times in which we require to produce academically massively. So today we introduce you the Artem collective, which is Melanie, Natalia, and Megan, who is not here, but we will introduce in some videos that she recorded for us. So we have Melanie. She's an assistant professor of teaching at University of British Columbia in the Department of Language and Literacy Education in Vancouver, Canada. She is a former K-12 educator. Melanie, say hi.
Hi.
We also have Natalia. She's an assistant professor at York University in Toronto, also in Canada, at the Faculty of Education. She's broadly interested in older adult and lifelong learning. Say hi, Natalia.
Hello, everybody.
And we also have Megan, who's on a video that we're going to introduce later, but she's an assistant professor of health economics and health systems research at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and she's based in Nairobi, Kenya. She works on improving quality of healthcare with a focus on maternal and newborn health in low resource setting. So what we're going to be doing right now is we're going to ask Melanie and Natalia to tell us a little bit about the work that you do, your research, what you teach, and if you want to share something personal as well, go ahead. Let's get started with Melanie. Go ahead.
So my research focused primarily on K-12 English language learners in technology enhanced classrooms. My research currently, my most recent one, is actually exploring learning experiences of elementary learners in the online classroom. I'm really also fascinated by the notion of place-based literacies. And I guess Yazid also wanted us to speak specifically about our teaching. So I teach in the BEd program and obviously graduate programs as well. It's really nice to see all of you virtually, I guess.
Nice. Natalia?
Well, my background is in applied linguistics. We actually started together with Melanie in the same Department of Language and Literacy Education at UBC. Right now, I'm in Toronto working at York University, and my research interest shifted a little bit. I'm currently exploring older immigrants' educational experiences broadly in community-based settings, including language learning, but not only language learning. I primarily use ethnographic research methods, but I try to incorporate creative research methods into my work as well, primarily storytelling. That was my dissertation was based on storytelling and exchanging stories about learning trajectories. I'm really interested in poetry, and I'm working with some colleagues from Digital Literacy Center at UBC on a really exciting poetry project called Phone Me, which is digitally mediated poetry. And I'm interested in collaborative research, partnering with professional artists and also non-professional artists in writing together, exploring together. I'm hoping to extend my work in more theater, applied theater work, such as writing ethnodramas. And in my teaching, I work in Bachelor's of Arts in Education program, teaching general courses to educators, future educators who might not want to go directly to K-12 settings and might be interested in working community-based settings with a range of ages in different educational programs.
Excellent. Thank you so much for telling us a little bit about who you are, where you're coming from, the work that you do, research and teaching as well, and to let the audience know where we're coming from. We have a video that I would like to share because Megan also wants to introduce herself. Let's see how it goes. So share the video. Now I share this screen and then I share, and then here we go.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to have everyone together for this discussion, and I'm sorry I couldn't be here at the start. My name is Megan Bruce Kumar, as Yasid said, and I work on various aspects of healthcare. So particularly, I'm interested in participatory research with patients, as well as with informal providers or those being formalized, such as community health workers. And I'm particularly working on experience of care. So sometimes in healthcare, we divide up our work into technical quality or clinical quality of care and patient experience of care. And we have a lot of data through routine systems on what makes up high quality clinical care and whether that's being achieved or not, whether people are meeting guidelines. But in terms of patient experience, that includes dignity, respectful care, communication, privacy, etc. Sometimes we know how to measure it, but even if we know how to measure it, often health systems don't do this routinely. And also my work tends to transcend disciplines within healthcare. So I work as a health economist. I do quite a lot of qualitative health research, implementation science, and I use different types of methodologies, particularly participatory action research. I teach health economics. I teach current issues in maternal and perinatal health at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And yeah, I guess that's enough from me for now, and I'll answer a few of Yasid's questions as they come up later.
Can't hear you, Yasid.
Yeah, thank you. No, I was muting myself.
A little bit about me.
Sorry, there you go. No, I was just saying that thank you, Megan, for helping us understand a little bit about the work that you do. And one of the things that I also wanted to mention is that, as you can see and hear, we are an interdisciplinary group. So although we are coming from similar backgrounds, Natalia and Melanie and me from linguistics and from language education, etc. We're also welcoming Megan, who's coming from a total different background, but that's exactly what we are. We are a interdisciplinary collective, research collective, and today we would like to share with you who we are, what we do, what we've been doing, and what we hope to be doing in the near future. So our friends Melanie and Natalia are going to help us to sort of introduce how this research collective was created and how it was envisioned.
So I think I'll start us off, Natalia. It actually started as a very interesting piece. It started on Twitter. And so many of you might be following us on Twitter, but actually that's the beginning of our story. Natalia and I obviously had a prior relationship, as in we knew each other from our graduate studies. However, one day I remember Natalia tweeting out a book, and it's Helen Kara's book. And I thought, oh my goodness, I want to read that book. So that started having a WhatsApp exchange with Natalia and leading us to actually form a reading Twitter book club, which introduced other people to our Zoom space to read a particular book that Helen Kara had just recently published. Now, through that book club, it morphed a little bit, and it ended up being the four of us. And really, I think we had such mutual interests, Natalia, like, and feel free to just add to this, but we really had this sort of love for creative writing. So it started out with a creative writing endeavor, and then it moved towards the Artem collective that we currently know.
And just to add, an interesting thing is because we publicly advertised the book club on Twitter, we had quite a lot of interest from all around the world. And that's how we met Megan, who just saw it on Twitter and connected with us. That's why I think the interdisciplinarity of our collective was possible, because we were focusing on exploring creative research methods together rather than focusing on a particular application in one discipline. And the way that it started and the way that our conversations enriched each other really opened new possibilities for us. And quite often we now kind of talk about, share different scholars, different frameworks among each other, kind of broadening our own understanding of what discipline is. So that's how we became an interdisciplinary collective, because research methods really transcend disciplines.
Absolutely. And when it comes to me, when I saw that tweet, and because I know Natalia from previous conversations as well, so I got interested as well in, oh, this is a good idea. Number one, working interdisciplinary, it was very interesting to me to start moving outside the box of my expertise, language education, applied linguistics, and start exploring other forms of doing things, or thinking about research, or thinking about education, especially when it comes to collaboration, but also thinking about how to do research in different ways, especially arts-based research as well. And this is something that I currently do in my own work as well. So when I come into the conversation, I read the same book, so I started liking the content of the book, and I say to myself, how can I contribute to such conversation? And then one of the things that I was interested in is in the artistic part, or in the art part of the collective that we started sort of creating. And I had conversations with Melanie, Natalia, and Megan about how we're going to introduce art into the collective, right? Like any type of different arts, like music and poetry and painting or drawing, different types of things. So it got me thinking, and I shared with our colleagues at that time, well, it would be a good idea to name this collective, or to the name to this collective that is around those lines of art. So I resourced to go back to my home language, which is Spanish. And then I remember the word art for art is arte, that's how it's translated into Spanish. That means art. But more accurately, it means a craft, right? And a craft that requires skill and a method, but also cleverness, but also passion. And that's why I said to myself, art describes all of these things that we have together, this idea of a skill, of a method, and overall the passion to do something. So this idea, coupled with the name Artemis, from the Greek goddess of hunt and strength, inspired the name of our collective as a group, bringing together the skill, the passion, and creativity in strong research across disciplines, right? So Artem Research Collective centers that creative approach to research processes to promote healthier, safer spaces, and with and for strong and resilient communities of research or practice. So our collective demonstrates that creative methods transcend the boundaries of all disciplines, right? And by integrating our different theoretical and empirical disciplinary perspectives, we try to create these new frameworks and new ideas to understand problems and develop solutions towards a more just world. And this transdisciplinary thing that we're talking about here today is also intersectional work that is reflected in our logo that you will see. I will probably show it a little bit later, which depicts a woven and intercrafted integration to move beyond discipline-specific approaches, right? So that's how it was created, the idea of art, the idea of a craft. So imagine the idea of manipulating ideas and thoughts and exchanging thoughts, but also that passion that we all have towards something, problems, and how to solve the problems through different artistic modes, like I said, poetry, art, music, etc., etc. And at the same time, it would help us in our academic career, not only to focus only on let's write for a publication of a journal, but we can also do some other things that will help us build community, but also feel good about ourselves. So that being said, I have another piece of the video that Megan recorded for us because she wanted us to know a little bit about why the benefits and why the need for such interdisciplinary collective work. So I think it's fascinating what she said. So I'm going to try to play it for us before we engage in more conversations about what the Arte Collective is. Here we go.
So I talked a little bit about interdisciplinary research within my work in health, but actually the work of our collective is interdisciplinary on a much broader level. So the question was about the need for an interdisciplinary collective, and I guess the answer that I would like to give is not necessarily about the need so much as about the benefits of working interdisciplinarily. I think what's very interesting, I remember an anecdote from a study I was working on access to care for pregnant women in several countries, including Indonesia and Ethiopia. And during that study, there was a lot of qualitative research done with women and with community health workers about what happened, who they went to, why they went there, and what the quality of care they got was. And what was very interesting is that we saw some of these common themes coming out very strongly across countries, even when neighboring districts in the same country maybe didn't always say the same thing in granular detail. And I think that's the same thing we see in our collective. So although there are very nuanced aspects of how you might conduct, for example, a political economy analysis of the health financing priority setting process in Mozambique, things about the identity of a scholar using creative methods in linguistics and in global health research might have common themes around overcoming hierarchy of evidence preconceptions, for example. So in my field, that's really around the RCT, the randomized controlled trial. And we think of that as the gold standard for evidence, or it's been purported that way, particularly among the scientific community. But what we know now, for example, from COVID is you can have really great, really fast vaccine development processes. They're super effective. And unless you get people to come and take them, it doesn't matter how good your science is. And so what we're seeing in our interdisciplinary work is really the opportunities and the commonalities that transcend our disciplinary training and identities.
Well, thank you so much, Megan, for helping us to build these ideas. Hold on, I need to stop the video. There you go. So yeah, it's all interesting to know about the benefits of our work and why it is so important to start working with other people from other places and other areas and other fields that sometimes we don't necessarily know, but that's what I personally think it's important to explore and know how other folks have been doing things in different ways. So now we're going to be exploring the idea of creativity, and Natalia is going to help us to understand what do we mean by creativity or creative work in research.
Thanks, Yasid. I just wanted to backtrack a little bit, just about thinking what Megan was saying, because we meet regularly in our research collective meetings. We meet monthly, and we started with just trying out different research methods to explore a question. So in our first kind of round of meetings, we were exploring the idea of academic identities, who we are as scholars, very shared feelings of needing to produce, not being able to produce to the scale that was expected from us, or working through imposter syndrome, working through the feeling of not knowing anything, and going through this hidden curriculum that exists as you begin your tenure track process, because all of us are in a similar stages of our academic journeys so far. So that's where I think Megan really hit it, the nail on the head by saying that some of these questions really transcend the disciplines, and we're able to work together. But as we were working together through these questions and trying out, songwriting, poetry writing, short story writing, how to approach this particular issue of who we are as researchers, as academics in this neoliberal academia, we developed, we think, a new research method that we're calling CCI, Creative Collaborative Inquiry. And for us, that's I think, for me, that's the strongest outcome so far, is this understanding that you can work creatively, collaboratively, and you can inquire, you can explore a particular topic through this means, in this, what you so well said, you see it as a safe and supportive environment. So we don't really have to combat through many different identities, as artists, as creatives, as whatnot. And so as a first component of CCI, this idea of creativity, we know that it's notoriously hard to define. So many people have different approaches in understanding what it is. But for us, I believe it's about transcending boundaries and spaces. And as a research collective, we really see this as an opportunity to engage in non-traditional methods of writing and exploring something. And what's more important, and because we were able to create this welcoming, nurturing space, it's really about being brave, right? And being brave and being limitless. And that's critical for us, because we embrace this creative possibilities, which some modes are harder than others. We had this example of trying to write a song, which didn't really work that well. But it is, for us, it's limitless. It's a brave space, because we're trying to push back against the boundaries of our disciplines in order to enhance our understanding, right, in reference to our positionality, who we are, what do we consider knowledge, what do we consider evidence, what do we consider impact. And that's why, this qualitative research, this idea of what is research, what is creative research, how can we incorporate different methodologies in generation of the data, qualitative data, or in the analysis of the qualitative data, and this idea of embracing and incorporating multiple ways of knowing, of reimagining our own learning of research, our own doing of research, and really embracing different perspectives, epistemological perspective, disciplinary perspectives. And that's why, we really embrace this idea of creativity, because for us, it opens the spaces for collaboration outside of disciplines, facilitates knowledge mobilization in diverse contexts, and it really creates this long-lasting, deep connections that continue outside of our regular meetings, but also into more day-to-day exchanges, creating not just research, but also friendships.
Exactly. I think you got a good point out, the idea of how the creative work help us build a relationship within the collective. To this date, we still keep the WhatsApp group, and then we still support each other, help each other, sending pieces of advice whenever it is necessary. So creativity not only refers to, oh, let's paint something, let's do a song or a poem together, but let's support each other in creative ways as well. So before moving into the next part, in which Megan has a video as well to talk about the idea of collaboration, I wanted to share the screen to show you the logo that I was mentioning earlier. So this is the Artem Research Collective logo, and then it sort of depicts or describes or illustrates what we have said so far. These different threads, as you can see, that interlock into each other, and sort of transparent as well, meaning that level of interdisciplinary, different colors, different people. As you can see, there are 5 sort of interlocking things, the 4 of us, but the other one could be mean the community, the people that we engage with as well, the people out there, anybody who is out there who wants to engage with us as a collective as well, at different colors, intersectionality, different places where we're coming from. So this is more or less what we wanted to share with you. But also, we also have another video from Megan who's going to help us understand what do we mean by collaboration or collaborative work, etc., etc., etc. So let's see. I'm going to try to play the video again. So here we go. Here. Share the screen.
Yeah, so let's continue with the definition of CCI. So with the term collaborative, we thought at first this would be the easiest one to define, because we would just mean essentially together. How do we work together to conduct a creative inquiry process? And I think as we imagined it, we would work on a piece either at the same time or indeed systematically adding on top of each other's work, and that this would result in a finely honed, cohesive product that really built on all of our expertise. But what we found was that it wasn't simply together or working one after the other. It was actually, there was individual engagement with the process and with the creative approach, as well as collective engagement. And what we found was that often we would each engage with a creative approach individually. We'd share our findings, we'd note similarities, we'd revisit our own work. And so it was this newly created synergy that we engaged in a process both individually and together at the same time. And it helped us as individuals to better define our voices and our ideas, as well as give us a chance to do some further self-examination and growth based on the ideas, the commonalities, and the differences between the products.
So I think I really like that last part about self-examination and growth. It is, in a sense, why we work together and why we collaborate, because we indeed help each other and support each other precisely to grow as individuals, but also as a collective. And that's one of the main reasons why we created this collective, because of that. And that's the reason why we're trying to put forward a framework that will help others out there to go through this similar process that we've been through, helping, supporting each other, create connections from all of these 3 different aspects: the creative aspect, the collaborative aspect, but also the inquiry aspect, right? Like that's why it's called CCI, as a proposed model or a proposed approach or a proposed framework for research, for collaboration, for education in general. So creativity, collaboration, and inquiry. But we haven't talked about inquiry yet. So that's why Melanie is going to help us to understand, why do we mean by inquiry?
Thanks, Yazid. So for us, in terms of the CCI piece, inquiry is obviously a very instrumental part of it. But this means focusing our research approaches on learning what involves exploring both the natural and the material world that leads us to critically reflect on our roles as educators and researchers in this academic world through creative and innovative ways of inquiry. So as a collective, we define inquiry as the journey into understanding something. When this practice turns into a creative endeavor of collaborating beyond the instances of just those human interactions that we have by engaging and utilizing more diverse methodologies or techniques, it becomes CCI, which we've discussed a little bit more in detail today. What this means for qualitative research is that data collection methods and tools are not only used in traditional modes, which we're very much used to as researchers and been trained to do, but those which have been widely considered before that we may not traditionally use, such as arts-based music, poetry, sound, and painting. So that's how we are defining inquiry as the Artem Collective.
Thank you so much for explaining or help us explain to the audience where we're coming from, what we mean by the framework that we want to propose out there to communities, to folks out there who are working in different ways of academic work as well. And one of the things that I wanted to mention, sort of compiling all the things that we have said today, is number one, the reason why we created this collective, and especially during the pandemic, was precisely to support each other, help us each other, as Megan was saying, like building on each other's work. And this is something that I have seen peers, I have seen folks out there, both on social media and why not. It looks like that part of collective work is missing. And then we encourage folks out there to seek those collaborations, to seek those collective work, because that way give us some window or space beyond or on the side of the so much work that we have out there in terms of academic work. You know, the system itself pushes to produce every day, you know, research and writing papers, going to conferences, meetings, and why not all of these things that we are day to day on a regular basis, doing all of this work to the clock, that creating a collective allow us for that little piece or window to breathe and pause for a second and share experiences and support each other through creative work. But one thing that that we can probably discuss more in details in the next few minutes that we haven't said that much is the creative part. I don't know if any of you want to jump in and give specific examples of what we did. And I can't talk about what I did, but maybe Melanie or Natalia or Megan can speak to the tangible things that we did creatively while we were doing in our meetings, because we did different types of online meetings and we still do it. And we sit down and we actually take some quiet time to do some creative work. So perhaps we're gonna explain to the audience what are the things that we do.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add to what you, Sid, was saying just now, is that there is immense value in this little pockets of joy, you know, in academic work, where, and that's what I meant by transcending boundaries, not just of research, but also going into more friendship at this stage. Because, you know, we were writing an article about this process, and I remember how Megan was saying how, you know, I don't want to write this article anymore. I want to do some CCI, you know, because I want to do some of the creative work. I want to write some poetry together, because that's where you get this little injections of joy, injections of inspiration that can carry you further when you do need to go and do something that is expected from, you know, from your job description, like a community meeting or prep for class, something like that. And I do feel that as academics, we're quite often compared to artists. When we are presenting something, and if somebody critiques it, we take it so personally because it's almost like they're critiquing our art. A paper is compared to a painting that you spend so much time pouring your heart and soul in it. And it's so easy to get bogged down in this expectation of publishing, presenting, getting grants. And it's so important to maintain the spaces and to claim the spaces of joy, where when you're doing something because you just want to explore a question creatively, and it's not necessarily directly linked to getting data, analyzing data, you just want to explore something in a company of people who share your experiences and who know what you're going through. So I think that's also a big value of this creative work. For me, I think the most memorable was our attempt to write a song, because this was something that we really did try. I have absolutely no musical background, so I tried to do something on my iPhone. But what I remember is that it turned into this almost self-soothing mantra, almost in a way, because we kept just saying that we know nothing. And we had this rhythm going, and we were just sitting on Zoom chanting, we know nothing. And again, just illustration of that, because it was so fun, because we were failing so spectacularly at this. We had audio feedback, things were not, somebody couldn't hear something, somebody could hear only one thing, the text wasn't running, the music wasn't playing. And, if we think about it, as a research method, if we were to do that, we would be very disappointed, because we kind of failed, but we didn't fail, because we learned something, we tried something in this fun, creative, safe space of people without any external pressure of needing to produce. And we were able to return to this experience and see it from a position of strength, from a position of growth, and from a position of still doing something, lots of fun, with like belly laughter and, like almost having like tears in your eyes because you're laughing so hard, which I just can't imagine, thinking back, if I were to do something like that on a major grant, and the future of the grant depending on it, I would have a very different reaction to something like that. So for me, that was something that I remember really vividly, this idea, how we tried to write a song together.
Nice. Melanie, tell us a little bit about our experience doing CCI.
I know, and I was going to actually add to our discussion too, because I know I feel like it could really enrich at least our research. So more specifically, and then I'll share my experiences, if that's okay. I'm thinking about the current research that I'm doing right now with very young learners, so elementary learners, and how I am going to be using CCI with these kids. And I think that's going to be really an opportunity to open up discussion in a different way, because we are now focusing on an arts-based piece. But going back to the original question, just because I think it is important that we go back there, I was thinking about my most memorable experience doing CCI, and there's so many, but recently we were writing a play type of thing. It's a script. And I know Natalia wasn't there that day, but she got lots of texts in our WhatsApp group afterwards. So it was a way of sort of talking about the frustrations that we were feeling, but also in a very creative way, entering into a discussion. So we had different identities that were put forth. So Dr. W has a very interesting persona that was introduced there, and so forth. But I feel like that process of writing together was really fun, but at the same time really freeing, because there was, as Natalia had just already said, like we can make mistakes, it's okay, right? But it was a very interesting experience, especially since some of our CCI experiences have been individually written pieces, but actually to collaborate in the same Google Doc and have that ongoing conversation during our CCI time was quite exciting, but also extending our understanding about how CCI can be theorized and how it can be used.
Right. Megan, is there anything you want to share with us, those creative moments that we did?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I guess thinking back what I found, so we spent quite a lot of time, I'm not sure if you said this before I joined, but quite a lot of time in our early CCI endeavors exploring identity. And what I often found was that the questions we were posing were a bit abstract and esoteric, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to put down on paper for this. And as soon as I got out my markers, or we started digging in a different way to the question, suddenly I realized I actually had a lot of both thoughts, but also maybe unsurfaced feelings and emotions that were accessed differently because of the way that we address the question. And so I found that really helpful, especially as I'm at this point in my career where, as an assistant professor trying to transition to leadership positions, I think being really confident in this interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary position that I'm taking, being able to, state confidently, actually, this is my identity and I do work in these areas and I have expertise. This was a really helpful thing for me to be able to explore this and to see what was kind of hiding under the surface.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that part. I guess for me, something that I wanted to share with you is because this collective actually helped me to exercise some of my personal work in poetry, but also sound, but also music as well. So in a sense, try to connect my academic world with my personal artistic world as a poet, I guess. So during one of our CCI sessions, I remember doing this blackout poetry. I think we were doing poetry in general, but I did poetry, and I wanted to share with the audience. I'm going to share my screen, a couple of things, just for the audience and people to know that more or less is what I did here. Attempting success. So this was based on a letter that I got, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this letter, and instead of being frustrated about the letter that I got, so I'm just gonna try to play around it, use some creative work and combine it with my love for poetry and create some kind of like blackout connecting poetry. And here it is. I created that poem called Attempting Success, and also, as you see, it's a strike out. And I love it. And I love doing this type of things when we meet, when we get together. We love to do this kind of poetry work, etc., etc. And I want to share also a couple of things that we have also done during our session. We did this little thing that is the CCI, the Creative Collective Inquiry framework. And we are sharing some of the values that we sort of started to explore, the idea of a tree, the idea of roots, the idea of fruits, the idea of how this happens in terms of dissection, fermenting, transplanting knowledge from here and there. So this was an exploration that we were trying to do here. Like, and I know Megan tried to put together some different ideas, but I'm not sure if Megan wants to.
I just want to say that you can see you don't have to be a visual artist to do CCI.
Yes. Yes, you're right. You got a good point, because many people may say, but I am not an artist. I'm not a musician. I'm not a poet. I am not a painter. I am not a singer. And the examples that were given earlier, exactly what Natalia was saying, like we were trying to do a song and try to sing online and then we noticed that the struggle, and it was a little bit difficult, but that doesn't mean that it was not successful. The success was how we're going to get together to do things as a team and as a collective, right? And then Megan is right, like in the sense that you don't have to be this type of artist, like you see in galleries, and why not museums. And it's just about having the space and to exercise and try different things that make sense at that point. The last thing I want to share is you were talking about the song, and I think this is some of the lyrics of the song that we were trying to put together and in the Google Drive, and trying to put what it is, what it's not, and then we actually tried to sing it and put a little bit of a tune on these things. And it was interesting. We were laughing and giggling all the time about what all of these lyrics, how they would song, even try to bring some instruments and things like that. But yeah, I think that's something that I wanted to share with you. Is there any other thing that you would like to share with us before we wrap up and see if there are any questions or comments out there? Anybody?
I just wanted to add, there is so much value in research collectives and just being a part of a supportive group, and just really encourage people to seek out companionship and spaces where they can explore things that are not directly maybe tied to their productivity. It's just, again, I'm just returning to my point of finding joy and doing research, almost thinking of, when we got into graduate school, I doubt that many of us thought, oh, I'm going to have so much fun writing grants day after day or revising the same article for the 10th time. We were all drawn to this academic conversations, exploring new ideas, meeting people, talking to them, kind of searching for community. And when we start working, it becomes more isolating almost. So this is our way to kind of reclaim this joy for research, and not productive necessarily research, though we are trying to see how we can spread these ideas into our day-to-day lives, work lives, but also just to be with people, explore together, have fun, laugh, be creative. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It looks like there are no questions from the audience today, although I want to give a minute or so to see if anybody who's watching us has a question for us. Unless Melanie or Megan has any last thoughts, any ideas about what we have done in the past, anything that we didn't say today. Is there anything?
I was going to say that it was actually needing to be brave. A lot of the times when we started out CCI at the beginning, I felt like we were taking jumps that I personally hadn't done before. I'm not a poet. I'm that person. So even to write a poem was very interesting to me. But now it's, when we do engage in CCI, I feel more confident about writing that. And there's something freeing about the fact that, so a lot of our discussions too, as well as we were exploring identity, which Megan had mentioned earlier, about these notions of identity, was sort of trying to figure out our space in academic spaces, right? We are certainly, all of us, although we are in different disciplines, are navigating different spaces and trying to figure ourselves out as scholars. And sometimes that can be scary, especially when you're brand new. So having the opportunity to engage in CCI and engage in that joy space that Natalia was just speaking so well about was very critical for us as we are trying to shape ourselves as scholars. But I do think that, like, sometimes at the beginning, or at least initially, it felt like I was jumping into different places that I wasn't very familiar with, because our academic training is very specific. It's very rigorous, especially when I think of myself as an applied linguist. There are certain ways that we analyze our data. And I feel like all of us have very similar experiences in our different disciplines. There's different standards, gold standards that Megan had talked about earlier too as well. And because we were doing CCI, which is not that gold standard, it felt freeing. It was pushing back against our graduate studies experiences that we remembered and being trained to. So I think there was something quite beautiful about the fact, and we did start during remote. So what was wonderful about it was, again, that community, and how it is important for us to have a community, but it's extended beyond that, right? I feel like this is these are friends that I text on a morning, like I wake up, and I'm in a different time zone from everyone else. And yet I've got like 100 messages there greeting me every morning. And there's something really magical about that. So certainly I think that CCI has really changed my life in this Artem collective specifically. So I think that would be what I'd want to add to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess just a couple of last words from me responding to what the others have said. So firstly, I think that these creative muscles are like anything else, and the more we use them, the more confident and capable we'll be to grow and develop this practice. So I think whether we started out as poets or artists, perhaps someday we will be more than we are now. The second thing that came to mind was a meeting last week that I had, where a colleague of mine talked about shedding our vulnerabilities, and that I think that's a lot of what we're trying to do together, is to put ourselves out there in a different way and see if it's viable and acceptable. And so this is the first space that we do that, but I think it's not the final space, and it's really allowing us to develop the confidence to be more of ourselves in a professional setting. And for me, at least, I find this group also to be an example for how we want to lead our own teams and how to build up colleagues. I think people often view academia as cutthroat and competitive, and it doesn't have to be. So we're not just finding joy in each other, but we're also sharing opportunities and celebrating success and building up peers who have been rejected. And I think that that's an important counterexample to be providing on a daily basis, both to each other, but also as we talk about the collective to other people. Inevitably, that's the kind of thing that comes up. And lastly, I guess I am very much in a different time zone, sitting here in Nairobi. And so our meetings for me are almost always in the evenings, as they are tonight. But I hope that someday we will get to meet in person, some of us or all of us. And so I look forward to that, because I think I'm the only one who has never met any of you at all.
I think that I also wish the same. I think at some point we're gonna all meet in person, having a nice dinner together, or a in-person CCI session. That would be probably the best. And I think that's in line with one of the questions that I wanted to ask ourselves, is what's going to happen in the future? How do we move forward from the work that we have done? And then hopefully our work in creative collective inquiry as a framework or model to follow, some others also take some inspiration on the work that we have done, because at the end of the day, our presentation today is to send the message that it's not about being competitive, and trying to be the first at what we do in our field, or trying to surpass our peers. Is about that celebration of success that Megan said it right way. Like, it's about how can we help support each other in those little nuggets of success, and see ourselves as equals, and support each other, rather than trying to say, oh, I have published more than you, I have these millions of dollars in funding, and you just got $1,000. It's not about that. It's more about support and helping us each other and moving each other in creative ways. So that being said, I'm gonna close it for today. Thank you very much, Melanie, Natalia, and Megan, for coming today as the Artem Research Collective. So everybody knows I am also part of the Artem Research Collective. So we are all together doing this, and we hope our friends out there get some inspiration. If at some point you get inspired by the work what we do, please let us know, because we want to grow these ideas and expand them to the entire cosmos. Thank you so much, Melanie, Natalia, and Megan. Have a wonderful rest of the week, everybody. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.